Utah, hello Cedar City, hello Iron County. My name is Thomas Loveheart. I'm a progressive independent who is running for Utah House District 71. And when I first started my campaign, the most important issue for me was housing affordability. We've seen home prices explode by over 60% since the pandemic. The population of Utah only increased by 8.5%. So this meteoric rise in home prices, it's corporate profiteering, and it's no surprise since 70% of the Utah legislature has deep financial ties to the real estate and construction industry. And out here in rural Utah, we know that that's a lot higher. And you can read all about my policy proposals to lower housing costs in Utah on my website, voteloveheart.com. But now it seems like the overarching focus of all Utahns is data centers, and this is an incredibly bipartisan issue. There's something like 45 proposed data centers being built across the state right now. Virtually all of them plan to be powered by natural gas power plants, releasing billions of tons of emissions into our air and causing birth defects and learning disabilities and asthma and cardiovascular problems. And once again, rural America is expected to absorb the infrastructure costs of this new multi-trillion-dollar industry and get none of the benefits. Keep in mind that they're spending $30 billion apiece on building the Antelope data center or the Red Butte data center out here in Iron County, and approximately $2 billion of that is going towards the natural gas power plant. That same money could be spent on building out 100% renewable energy resources. And the developers behind these projects, they keep on trying to assure the public by telling us that they're going to adhere to all of the regulations and all of the policy that exists. But they seriously downplay the fact that the Utah legislature has massively deregulated environmental protections. There is an executive order from Donald Trump himself that bans states from individually regulating AI for the next 10 years. So these promises that they're going to follow the laws on the books about their energy usage or their water usage or their air pollution is meaningless, because the Utah legislature has shown, Spencer Cox, all of the county commissioners, and Box Elder, all of the Iron County commissioners have shown that they're totally willing to bend over backwards to accommodate these projects. All of these promises are just that. They're a PR stunt. Unless we have hard guarantees in writing, then there is no way of holding these corporations liable for the damage that they might cause. I can guarantee you that if we go into the next decade with the same politicians sitting in the legislature that are there now, then we definitely will not hold these corporations liable. And Republican or Democrat, left or right, we have to ask ourselves, is our air and water worth the 500 jobs that they say they're going to create? We can talk about living in a representative democracy, but if the people that we elect go to the legislature and then refuse to represent us, then we don't have representation. That's not democracy. So everything that we see that has gone wrong in Utah over the last 15 years is the direct result of a supermajority in the legislature that doesn't represent the people that put them there. I mean, keep in mind that the Utah Constitution literally guaranteed citizens the right to petition their government through ballot initiatives and referendums. And the Utah legislature has spent the last 7 years trying to overturn that right, trying to amend the Utah Constitution so that there are no checks or balances on the legislature's power. Just because corporate establishment Republicans say that they hold the same conservative values as you, they hold the same religious or the same family values as you, doesn't mean that they actually do. In fact, it's a manipulation tactic meant to gain your loyalty that should piss you off. Utah needs to elect more independent-minded representatives like me who will actually fight for the people, who will actually require these trillion-dollar tech corporations to power these things on renewables, to freeze water and electricity rates for regular ratepayers and residents, to require big tech to pay for all of the infrastructure costs that they're going to require to get these data centers online, rather than diffusing those costs across ratepayers, and to actually pay the enormous property taxes that these $30 billion gigantic developments should be paying, rather than lobbying corporate bought politicians in our legislature to give them tax breaks. In fact, we're witnessing the total marriage of the government with big tech, with Palantir, Andrew Wheel. They're putting ChatGPT in the Pentagon. They're kicking Claude out of the Pentagon because they set the boundary of not doing domestic mass surveillance on American citizens or powering autonomous drones. And we sit at this moment in history with the advent of AI and these incredible promises about what that means for the future, creating trillions and trillions of dollars in wealth, displacing millions of workers, skyrocketing productivity. But for who? As it stands, this technology is owned by maybe 9 billionaires and is being ushered in by a government that does not want to regulate that. If this technology truly has the transformative potential that they're telling us it does, do we really want that to be owned by a tiny class of unelected, unaccountable, globalist corporate billionaires? There are calls for a national moratorium on data centers, but that is coming from the most far left-leaning politicians in the country. That's Bernie Sanders and AOC. Chuck Schumer, who is a corporate Democrat, is calling for these data centers to pay for the power that they add to the grid, because that is not already an expectation. And when we talk about accountability for these big tech trillion-dollar corporations, there is not a peep coming from establishment Republicans on the right. In fact, one of the only Republicans in Congress who openly defied Donald Trump's agenda, that is Representative Thomas Macy of Kentucky, was kicked from Congress today because AIPAC and Trump's super PAC spent $35 million against him, making it the most expensive congressional primary in U.S. history. And that is simply because he pushed the Epstein Transparency Act, which 90% of Americans on both sides of the aisle supported. If we want to build a country where regular working people can get ahead and actually afford to buy a home and start a family, then we need politicians that work for us and not for gigantic tech corporations in Silicon Valley or gigantic real estate development corporations in New York City. They say it's tax cuts, but every time they cut income taxes, my property taxes go up, my sales taxes go up. They say it's mass deportation for illegals. But America, what America really is not these borders, it's an idea. Representative democracy. And it should be a shining beacon to anyone in the world who believes in that vision. And instead it has been completely captured and controlled by corporate interests, so that the entire country has essentially become a wing of these corporations, a division of big oil or the military industrial complex, or now big tech. For 50 years, America's greatest political achievement was the creation of a strong middle class. But we spent the last 50 years dismantling that. And now we see exploding rates of poverty and explosive rates of consolidation of political and economic power among a tiny, tiny elite who have enormous influence over who gets elected and what legislation that they pass. And if that means gutting the Clean Air Act or gutting the Clean Water Act or gutting public land protections, they'll do it. And that is not a free country. None of this is America first. MAGA says they want to make America great. But the truth is, if we're ever going to build a truly great country, then we need to ditch the manufactured divide of red versus blue. America first means making sure that a school teacher or a nurse is not paying higher taxes than a billionaire. America first means that we protect our public lands instead of selling them off to oil and mining corporations. America first means lowering the cost of healthcare so that you don't lose everything just because you got sick. I know that this is going to fall on a lot of deaf ears, but they're talking about a blue wave in November, and Utah should be a part of that. Republicans who still believe in the principles that this country was founded on, which is liberty and freedom and justice for all, everybody, including the president, they have to realize that this is not what the MAGA movement is. Donald Trump is likely a pedophile and certainly the most corrupt insider trading, stock market manipulating president in history. And the damage that he's done to our American institutions, the checks and balances on the executive, and the damage that he's done to our economy with these tariffs that the Supreme Court then overturned, but we're stuck with those high prices and will likely contribute to another cycle of inflation that we've been dealing with since 2019. If we want to make America great and we want to make Utah great, then we need to make the state affordable for people to actually live a life here. And being a conservative means preserving what really matters before it's gone forever. Preserving our public lands and the beautiful landscapes that really make Utah what it is. Every vote that you cast this November for a Republican is further ushering in this future that none of us want. Listen, I know that we're not going to agree on every single thing. I call myself a progressive independent, and I have some very left-leaning views when it comes to the environment. But I promise you, there is a lot more middle ground on the things that are important to me and the things that are important to you than the things that matter to you and the things that your current Republican representative cares about. Rex Ship has spent 8 years in office, and he has not passed any legislation that actually improves the lives of working families in his district. Instead, he spent all of his energy focusing on red versus blue culture war issues and trans kids in sports and stuff that doesn't matter. While home prices have exploded, while our healthcare premiums have exploded, while they try to defund our public schools and sell off our public lands, I'm tired of rural Utah always getting screwed. I'm tired of rural America in general always being the last to get representation. We deserve a real opposition party out here that actually focuses on the real problems that we have out here. Again, my name is Thomas Loveheart, and you can learn all about me and what I stand for on my website. And if anything I'm saying resonates with you, then please consider voting for me this November, and please consider donating to my campaign, because this is as grassroots as it gets.